Welcome back to the channel. In a previous video I did a 3-season gear loadout video, and I figured I should get around to doing a winter gear video since I live here in the Northeast United States, and winter backpacking is much different than 3-season backpacking. Up here in the Northeast we have to account for a wide range of temperatures from 30 degrees Fahrenheit down to negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit sometimes. So the gear items that I take might be situation dependent from trip to trip, so keep that in mind. Your areas might have different temperature ranges, so my gear might not necessarily fit your needs, but hopefully it'll give you some ideas of some things that you might need to do some winter backpacking. I'm going to try to go through the list pretty quickly, but basically there'll be a lighter pack list in the description below with everything that's in here, and it'll have more details about the items that I take in case I don't give enough information in this video. With that being said, let's get into the gear. Alright, here I have my big 3 and a bunch of the winter specific items that wouldn't go on a 3-season trip with me. Starting off, for my backpack, I have an Osprey Atmos 65 AG. It handles the weight pretty well. Since I'm backpacking in winter, I tend to carry heavier gear. There's an Osprey pack cover. My tent, right now it's the Nemo Hornet 2P. I'd like to upgrade that to something that's more of a winter tent. And this is the Outdoor Vitals negative 15 degree Summit sleeping bag that I would take if its temperatures are going to be around 0 degrees or lower. And this is packed inside of an Osprey 20-liter dry sack. I have 2 other quilts that I might take if the temperatures are warmer. I have a 0 degree hammock air quilt and a 20 degree hammock air quilt, depending on the temperature that I'm expecting. And the sleeping pad that I use is the Climate Insulated Static V Luxe SL. It's a wider sleeping pad. I feel like the regular size sleeping pads are not as comfortable, so getting a good night's sleep is important. So I carry the extra weight for a more comfortable sleeping pad. Right beside the backpack I have the MSR Lightning Ascent. These are 30-inch. Because of my body weight and the pack weight, I went with the 30-inch snowshoe, but I probably could have got away with the 25-inch, to be honest. I have Cascade Mountain Tech trekking poles with the snow baskets on them. I have Cthulhu micro spikes that are helpful when I'm not using the snowshoes and just on packed snow and ice. I have a little foam sit pad. I believe that one was from Mountain Laurel Designs. And my fanny pack from Light AF. Got some snow goggles just in case the conditions above tree line are getting too windy. And that's the strap that I use to attach the snowshoes to my backpack when they're not in use. And then finally I have these REI gaiters to help keep the snow out of my boots. And here are some of the clothing items that I would be wearing on a typical winter backpacking trip. Depending on the temperatures, I would either go with the Merrell Moab insulated boots or the Columbia Newton Ridge waterproof boots. For base layer, I have Icebreaker Oasis 200 top and bottoms, Smart Wool underwear, Columbia Royce Peak 2 pants. I'm probably going to change those out at some point. And the Patagonia R1 hooded. For socks, I have the Darn Tough full cushion. I have a pair of REI liner gloves that I typically will hike in when it's cold. That's an REI Minimalist Gore-Tex shell cover for the gloves. And then if it's really cold out, I have a pair of REI Gore-Tex mittens. If the wind's really blowing, I have a Saris face mask. But typically I'll just use a lightweight merino buff and a lightweight merino hat. For extra protection from the elements, I have a pair of Marmot Precip rain pants, a Patagonia Torrent Shell rain jacket, and an Arc'teryx Atom LT hooded jacket. Because I'm backpacking in an area where the conditions can change pretty rapidly, I always want to have some backup clothing items with me. So I carry the Enlighten Equipment insulated pants, Patagonia Capline thermal tops and bottoms, some extra socks. I have on the left, I have a pair of possum down socks, mainly for sleep. They're pretty comfortable. A pair of waterproof socks, and then an extra pair of hiking socks. I also have a pair of Patagonia fingerless convertible mittens. Those are typically used around camp, just so I could have a little bit more dexterity. And then in case my other pair of liner gloves gets wet, I have an extra pair of liner gloves, a fleece beanie from Melanzana, and then a lightweight merino balaclava. And then this giant coat is my Montbell Alpine Down Parka. Super warm. I would only bust that out in really intense emergency conditions. It's an awesome coat, and it compresses pretty well because it's down. And I almost forgot these very important items, my Enlighten Equipment Sidekick booties, which keep my feet toasty warm on a cold winter night. Here are some of the food and water items that I would take. So water is a bit of a challenge in the winter. Typically in 3-season temps I would be filtering with either a soy or a cat-o'-nine B-free. But in the winter time I'm either boiling water or using some of these Aqua Mirror drops, and I'll pre-mix them in the contact lens case just to make it easier to use on trail. I also have that Therapen Adventure as an alternate way of making water safe to drink pretty quickly. But typically I'll carry 2 of the Nalgene 1-liter HDPE bottles. They're supposedly a little bit more durable than the hard plastic ones for winter, and I have 2 different types of insulators, both made by Nalgene. And then I carry a smaller Nalgene 16-ounce HDPE bottle with a little insulator sleeve, and that's the one I'll typically use for electrolyte mixes and that sort of thing. I have my Hilltop Packs food bag. I have 2 titanium pots here, one that's just for boiling water or collecting water if it's a hard to reach location. It has a bail on it that makes it a little bit easier to lower it to some water. The big pot is a 1300 milliliter Toaks, and then the smaller one is a 900 milliliter that I'll typically use for food or my coffee. And I have a regular size Toaks titanium spoon. And then for stoves, they're really temperature dependent. So I prefer to bring a canister stove, and this is a Covia spider stove that runs on the canister. And I think I've used this one down to about 10 degrees, maybe a little bit lower in my testing. But if it's going to be super cold out, then I'd have to go with the heavier MSR Whisper Light. And the fuel obviously weighs a little bit more, and it's kind of a hassle to set up. So I typically don't want to bring that if I don't have to, but if the temperatures are really cold, you got to do what you got to do. So I have that, the little windscreen, and a little stand for the stove. Alright, now we have some self-care items. The green dry bag in the back, that's my poop kit, double ply or die. I got some hot hands, just in case the extremities start to get too cold. A little knee brace, just in case, a backup pair of glasses because I'm blind. And then my first aid kit is pretty basic, but I keep stuff in this little lock sack. And I got Porta wipes, those are basically the coin size towels. You add water and they expand. Really good for cleaning. KT tape, first aid, burn cream, some rubber gloves, antibiotic ointment, smelling salts, a little crazy glue, whistle, titanium tweezers, leatherman micra, a little magnifying glass, a mirror, some gauze pads, sanitizer, and some quick clot powder in case I have a gaping wound. And finally, we have some electronics and miscellaneous items that I take with me. I like to video my adventures, so I try to always have my GoPro. That actually comes in pretty handy in the wintertime when I don't do as much recording with my iPhone, just because of the temperatures and fumbling with gloves and things like that. It's a lot easier to record with the GoPro. I have a stick pick with a Manfrotto Pro phone clamp on it. Again, a lot of times that doesn't get used, but just because of the temperatures. I have a bivy stick satellite locator. I can send messages to loved ones with that. That's been coming in pretty handy. Or just send a quick check-in by a quick push of a button. I have a Nightcore NU25 headlamp and some cables for the different electronic items here. I have a battery bank. This is a 10,000 milliamp hour Anchor. It's kind of old. I probably upgraded that at some point, but it's working fine. A map of the area that I'll be hiking in, a little notepad with an all-weather pen, compass, a couple thermometers just to be able to monitor the temperature, and then finally my Mora Eldris neck knife. And that's about it. I have a ton of gear to pack, and it's mainly because the White Mountains can be pretty challenging to plan backpacking trips in. Some people might take a more minimalist approach to packing their gear. My feeling is I'd rather have the gear and not need it than need it and not have it. So when I have the backup safety gear, it's really with that in mind. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, and as always, I appreciate you watching the videos. Take care.